the Business One community was formed to increase product awareness, deliver access to resource, and really create safe spaces for collaboration. We conducted a survey on AI and Business One, and really there were three main themes that came out of it. Our first question is very basic. Are you currently using AI in conjunction? Interesting in that it is a pretty even distribution where 51% have said no and 48% of people have said yes. But really, let's just go on to our next question, which is, what are your expectations? Which is getting this question a little bit further down in the weeds of how we're using AI in Business One. I would say AI in Business One is working in two ways that I've seen. One, in that people have products, whether it be a particular point product like payments processing, which uses AI in its engines to support its function. There are the next level, which are toolkits, and several partners seem to have toolkits already. So I wanted to move on to our next section, which is going to be a return on investment in SAP Business One. Should ROI be taken into consideration right now, with AI? A lot of people believe that right now we're in such an early phase of artificial intelligence that it is almost a mandate that we have to start using it. And I think that even the people who said no, they're not using it, are using it in different ways. If we, Google a question, nowadays we're getting an AI response from Gemini, whether we thought we were using AI or not. So most of us are using AI today in some form or fashion, and it looks like most of us believe that we should be getting a return on that investment. Which AI projects do we think have the best chance of earning a return on the investment in the small to mid-sized companies which Business One serves? We can all debate all day long on what is a small company and what's a mid-sized company, but at the end of the day, Business One fits probably 5 different tiers of companies, because if you're a $3 million company with the complexity that requires something like Business One, you consider yourself a small business, or most people consider you a small business, but coming from a mom and pop shop, you're big. Versus, I know companies with $300-500 million in revenue, and SAP might consider that a mid-sized entity, where other people might think that that's really big, So either way, that's our target market, the companies that are from outgrowing the QuickBooks all the way up to large companies who don't need sophistication beyond Business One, or now are looking to things like artificial intelligence to get them the sophistication beyond Business One. Clearly, streamlining operations at 75% was the most, as well as the automated bookkeeping and invoice processing, which kind of feeds into what Kunjan said. And then I know we have people from Tipalti and Trailed on the webinar who focus on payments in Business One and automating those processes, as well as the marketing automation scored really high. And honestly, all of these categories that I put in this poll are currently being used in some way, shape, or form. So with that, I want to kind of ask my first question to one of my longtime partners, Shelly Bitter, and I'm about to take her off of Allow to Talk with video, because I know that she built a tool for measuring AI with AI for AI.
Yes, so Gary has invited me to talk a little bit about calculating ROI, because I work with a lot of smaller customers where it may or may not be there. And to do AI for the sake of AI is okay. as long as you know that's what you're doing. So when it comes to calculating the ROI, I kind of look at a number of different factors that I built my calculator around. And I think Gary wanted me to just talk about, kind of what some of those things were. And so I usually start with an analysis of the current state and understanding how much it costs to do something now. So whether that's a time study and figuring out how long it takes to process a transaction that you're going to automate and power with AI versus with a fully loaded labor rate, taking all of that into account for what does it cost to do it today. And I thought it was interesting that in the poll, a lot of people were talking about streamlining operations and decision support, which doesn't really fit my model very well. So I think that's going to be a more difficult one to evaluate because it's not repeated in the same way that, say, transaction processing is. But to come as close to a realistic number of having people do the work supported by whatever the tool set is, what is that number? And then looking at the risks involved with using AI for that particular process. And in that case, it's really about, if AI gets something wrong, how much damage is it going to do? And I think these are things, and I'm not trying to be negative, anti-AI. I'm a big fan. I use it all the time, but there also needs to be kind of an understanding of what happens if AI gets it wrong, because it looks and sees things in its analysis that maybe is based on information that it doesn't have. So really that analysis is kind of the first piece, because that's going to represent really the saving side of doing an AI project. Next, I want to look at the cost. I look at the setup cost, that one-time onboarding, if you need consultants to do certain pieces of the work, depending on how plug and play the solution is, and understanding the time your people will need to adjust the process and learn how to use new tools and testing. Then I look at the ongoing cost, which is, since we've gotten away from perpetual licensing, everybody's got a subscription, and there's definitely an ongoing cost. And then finally, I like to look at the growth and the cost escalation. So growth meaning you're in a business where you're expecting a certain amount of growth, and you might not have the payback right away because things are more simple and you don't have as many people, but you're planning to grow. And instead of hiring new people, you want to leverage AI so that you can do more with the people that you have. Like to look at that side of the equation as well. And then the cost escalation. I know some of the people here have different opinions about what's going to happen with cost of AI over time. I'm someone who believes that it is going to go up, and I like to factor that into my consideration of whether that's the direction that you want to go. And so these are the different things that I really try and put together, and then have AI or have my calculator spit out kind of an answer of, yeah, it's there. Here's some numbers, or no, it's not there. Here's some numbers, or we're kind of on the borderline, and it's really a you decision based on, where you want to be on the continuum of technology.
Thanks, Shelly. That was a good opening. And what I'd like to do next is turn to one of the people in the audience who works with Computec, Martin Gore. I believe that Martin can tell us some stories from existing customers and how they've calculated ROI and what kind of ROIs they are getting in SAP Business One.
All right, so thanks, Gary. Use cases, right? So I think many of us have been either we play with AI or we know of organizations which are starting to use it, right? So I think that the challenge always has been in, how do we find an ROI from this? So I like to share a couple of examples. One is actually from our own organization and one from a customer that we'll be working with, using our MCP server as part of our Computec solutions. And the company I talk about, obviously I can't mention the name, but they are a food manufacturer of around about, I don't know, let's say about $15 million US, single factory. And within that industry, we know that there is a lot of market volatility around raw materials that you buy. Okay. And now, what I'm going to explain really, you would say, well, hang on a second, they should probably already know as a manufacturer by looking at their master data and their actual data from manufacturing. But it's surprising how many companies today don't really look at, things like product variances between, my standard bill of material, my manufacturing bill of material, right? Now, what was quite interesting is that they were doing, and they basically, they did, very simplistic, let's say they turned on AI, right? They started to look at their historical variances of their manufacturing orders. And they very quickly realized that their bill of material accuracy was pretty low, right? So standard versus actual. And they were also using the concept of backflushing rather than actually consuming more actual raw material quantities. And through running through a number of prompts, and as Richard says, then diving down into going left and going right and diving through, right, they actually found that because the bill of material wasn't accurate, then their final cost was inaccurate, right? And this, when they did the final analysis, they actually found out that if they improved the bill of material accuracy, right, they could actually save $100,000. So that's quite significant, right? That's quite significant. And for me, that's probably a pretty good example of, how they used AI and then found an ROI from it. Prior to that, right, they felt, as an organization, they felt they had to use AI because everybody else was using it. They felt, compelled to use it and didn't actually necessarily, have an ROI around it. But they soon realized that they could very easily, find and create an ROI very, 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 very easily by that particular example. That's one example. I'd give a second example where actually at Computec, we have a small development team, and probably about 3 months ago, we were a traditional, development house. So we had a bunch of developers, right, developing applications. In 3 months, our team is now actually can change to be what I call orchestrators. So what does that really mean is that they are using AI to do several things, right? They are using AI to help with coding, right? They're helping it to find bugs, right? So these developers are now orchestrators, but that means then their skill set has changed, right? So they're more around, how can they improve the prompt and articulating the need. So they're coming more around architects rather than developers. And this comes back to a point around people, right? Which was, we did a cost analysis internally and we found out that, okay, we have to pay for the tokens, right? Of course, we realized that. But we actually found that we had a very, very quick ROI because the cost of hiring a developer, right? Even you think about our offices in Poland, the cost of developer in Poland is, I don't know, a good one is around 50, 60K a year, right? At least. So we found that rather than hiring developers, we were able to offset the hiring by our team investing in time around building skills, etc., within the AI agent that we were using, and then using the AI application itself to help in generating code. So that's two examples I wanted to share with you around ROI.
No, that was great, Martin, and it's really interesting because we're talking a lot about customers, but there are partners, and a lot of partners on the call today, and there's been a lot of discussion around using AI in consulting, or will AI replace consultants and doing things like data conversion and things to that, more of the nuts and bolts work of consulting can be replaced by artificial intelligence if properly set up. So that's been a big topic of conversation in the world of consulting, and I've seen people talk about doing a automated conversion from QuickBooks to product A to product B, right? And how it has saved ungodly amounts of time. And then what do you charge the clients, right? Do you charge the clients the same thing that you would have always charged the client or not? So interesting that we just got a question in the chat, offering AI service on a pay-per-use basis, which basically goes at a much lower cost. And the real question is not just ROI, the real value is what service actually enables for the entrepreneur, right? So what could you do that you might not have been able to do without AI? So, and then if people are monitoring the chat, they'll see that there's been a lot of conversation about token costs. And are token costs going up, or are token costs going to go down, or are we going to have to increase token usage as time goes on and we use more sophisticated agentic models than we've had in the past? And all of this will definitely impact our return on investment in AI. So I definitely see a lot of use in the programming world, right? Like I used to have to ask people like Shelly to write queries for me, and now I don't. It would be interesting to see if anybody has a take on how is this impacting the end user, right? So are the end users able to do more than they used to because they have AI compared to what consultants used to have to do for them because the end user didn't have the knowledge, skills, or capabilities to perform those tasks? So is that going to shift our work, right, between what we used to do and what we'll be doing in the future? Does it make the consultant more of an advisor and less of an implementer? Lots of questions that we have that need to be answered. And Richard is asked to be unmuted again. Surprise, surprise. But I will honor his request, and because we only have about 5 minutes left in this session.
Okay, I'm unmuted again now. I didn't want to give you my opinion on this. I wanted to give you the feedback that we've actually gained now being a cloud provider and having more and more customers coming to us saying, hey, can you please open up our SAP Business One system, open up the service layer, open up a direct database connection for us, because we want to connect an MCP server that we found or somebody gave us or whatever, and we want to start utilizing it for doing these tasks. And you know what? The prime, and this might not be good news for partners on the call, the primary reason why they give for wanting to do this is because they've been told that if they do these things, then they don't need to pay consultants anymore, and it'll save them money. But then almost every single scenario, they've been not misinformed, but They haven't necessarily understood the gulf between what the marketing blurb says you can do and what the reality is. I mean, we had a customer who said, oh, we want to use Claude Code to convert print layout designer layouts into Crystal Reports layouts. Well, you can't do that programmatically. Neither of those two products actually have an API that allows you to do these things programmatically. So, you know, these are some of the challenges. We had another one recently where one of the young guys in the warehouse said, hey, I can do some stuff with Claude. And, you know, I decided that I wanted to connect into the environment and start doing things. But they asked us for connection to the production environment. I said, why do you want the production and not the test? And the person, God love them, said, oh, what's the difference? Does it matter if I'm testing, if I'm you know, doing a skunkworks project against production data? I mean, everybody knows the answer to that question that's probably on this call, but these are the challenges that we face. So I like the idea that they're not necessarily misinformed, but maybe they've been oversold. And this is the challenge we all face, whether we are vendors, whether we're customers, whether we're user champions inside organizations. The ability to be educated and informed, so you know how to do this, is the challenge. And that's based on, like, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen 4 scenarios where this has exactly been the big issue. So thanks for unmuting me.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that that might actually be a great segue into governance and security.